Hello and welcome to the first video of a series on which we take a look at all the enemies in the first God of War game. Today we'll be looking at some undead enemy types. The first of which we'll be taking a look at are the Legionnaires, an enemy type among many that we see frequently throughout the game. Let's take a look at the first variant of the Legionnaires, the Undead Legionnaire. We encounter this one at the beginning of the game on the boats in the Aegean Sea. As simple as this one is compared to its counterparts that we'll be taking a look at shortly, I quite enjoy the way it looks. From the cracked helmet that's protecting its head, the simplicity of its damaged weapon, to the ripped garments that hang from its body. Here's a few animations that I really enjoyed. I like this one due to how pathetic it looks as it sluggishly spins its whole body and weapon towards Kratos. I appreciate this animation. The way its upper half flies off behind its legs that stand for a short moment before collapsing to the floor is quite brutal. Sadly, the website that I am using doesn't display blood, so here it looks quite comical. This is what it would look like in game. As you can see, it looks much better. This one I enjoyed especially due to how it effortlessly flails its whole body into a spin motion to attack Kratos. This next variant is called the Cursed Legionnaire. You encounter this variant when entering the docks of Athens. I do like this one as it is a step up from the Undead Legionnaire. It has a bit more armour as you can see, and some spikes protruding from the perhaps aged battle-worn armour. The weapon this one wields is now bigger and curved, with an extension to the edge of the blade, thus adding extra lethality. I enjoy this taunt animation, the way it moves, and the looseness of its limbs to emphasise that it is undead. I just really enjoy how it looks. This death animation here is when Kratos kills it. He does this by picking it up and splitting it in half. This is what it looks like in game. I love the brutality of it. The strength of Kratos tearing it in half satisfies me. The Magic Legionnaire is the next variant. We also encounter this in Athens. This one is similar to the Cursed Legionnaire, except for the blade and shield. Sadly, however, you can't see the shield for an unknown reason. I did look to see if it was perhaps hidden, but I found nothing. However, this is what it looks like with the shield. I like the shield and that it has cracks, a large chunk missing from the top of the shield and an interesting engraving. I love the look of this variant, despite it being the same model as the Cursed Legionnaire. I love this animation. This happens when you use Kratos' blade combos, like Valor of Hercules, where you press triangle twice and then square, or by his other move where you press square 6 times in a row. There is no name for this move that Kratos performs that I could find, sadly. A thing I noticed while looking at this animation is that it doesn't appear to actually spin. It appears that it just jolts side to side in one quick succession to achieve this look. In game, I've always thought that they actually spun. It's interesting to see that they don't. Here's a few other animations I enjoyed. This stagger animation happens when you perform Plume of Prometheus. This move slams Kratos' blades down, causing their shield to shatter and causing this animation. This is an interesting attack. I enjoy how it jumps up with its arms pulled back, ready for when it hits the floor swinging its blade, and then its shield following after. I enjoy how this one taunts by smacking its shield with its sword and then waving it in the air while screaming. This second to last variant that we'll be taking a look at here is the Fallen Legionnaire. You first encounter this when facing the challenge of Atlas in Pandora's temple. As you can see, this one has more armour than the previous types of Legionnaire. With it being gold, the armour looking completely different, especially the helmet, of which now has what appears to be horn-like spikes protruding from the top of it. The blade looking similar to the Cursed Legionnaire's blade, but instead having spikes coming from the inner edge instead of a second blade coming out of the outer edge. I'm quite fond of this attack here, as I enjoy the fact that it flips its body towards you, swinging its sword as it flips before landing on its back and quickly recovering. Looking at it here, it looks quite comical. Here's what it looks like in game. This taunt animation here is interesting, for the simple fact that its mouth is actually open while it screams. I wasn't actually expecting its mouth to be open. I just thought it was going to be closed while it did the animation. I enjoy the fact that it is open, however. You see this taunt properly here at the beginning of the game, occasionally throughout the game too, but at the beginning is where you first get a proper look. This final one here is the Captain Legionnaire. This one looks the most interesting out of the ones that I have shown so far. You encounter this one at the Challenge of Poseidon in Pandora's Temple. As you can see, this one is a big step up from the others, ironically due to him being the captain, not only in that fact, but that its design is very interesting. This one has two distinct weapons, one being a broadsword that appears to have little to no damage, and the other being a scythe that has a few cracks and some streaks of blood. I enjoy the look of the armour on this one too. I'm a big fan of the Captain Legionnaire's taunt animation here. The way it spins the scythe around in front of him before placing it back on its back is very satisfying to watch. I like both of its attacks too, both being very smooth and deadly. The way it swings its arms and moves its body here are different too. It's not too loose like it was with the others, it seems to have more thought in its attacks despite that it is undead. Maybe there's still some mind left in there, and it's not completely undead. This death animation here is when Kratos grabs its broadsword, stabs it before finally kicking it over onto its back. Here's what it looks like in game. I've always enjoyed this animation, of course it looks much better in game as you saw. Next up we have the archers. This first variant is called the Undead Archer. You find this one on the boats in the Aegean Sea. As you can see, the archer's model is the same model as the Undead Legionnaire, except for the bow of course and a new piece of armour, the shoulder guard. It doesn't look very interesting as it is just the Undead Legionnaire with a bow. You may remember them from this part of the game. I got very frustrated at this point, as I'm sure many of you also did. Sadly, as you may have noticed, there is no arrow displayed here. However, this is what it looks like in game. It looks much better, and it doesn't look like the archer is holding a big stick. I like this attack animation, the way they attack Kratos with the bow before firing an arrow at him. As simple as this attack is, by that I mean all we're seeing here is him pulling back and releasing. I do like it. I like it for that fact actually. Even though this is an idle animation, I do quite enjoy how the archer has a slight hunch to his stance. Gives more feeling to him being undead. This next variant is called the Cursed Archer. We encounter this one in the sewers of Athens. I personally prefer the look of this one, its armour and bow being grey just like its skin and having spikes protruding from both its armour and its bow, thus showing that this one is a bit more dangerous. I don't have much to say here about this one other than that I prefer it over the Undead Archer. The Cursed Archer looks more menacing, whereas the Undead Archer looks pathetic and weak. Here we have our final undead enemy type of the video, the Wraith. We encounter this one on the rooftops of Athens. I find the Wraith somewhat creepy, the way it looks with the fact that it just floats around, its eyes glowing orange and its arms and hands being replaced with giant sword-like appendages. Its armour too, having only shoulder guards and a helmet, and what seems to be a dress. Here in this idle animation further proves my point. The way it sways around floating with the occasional twitch of its head uneases me. I never found them creepy until seeing it here. When you're in the game you don't take much notice as you're constantly fighting and moving around. You don't really get a chance to take a proper look. I find this taunt animation especially creepy, due to the fact as it sways around it laughs at you, like it's excited for the fight, and that by mockingly laughing at Kratos suggests that it isn't scared. It's more happy than anything. This is another interesting animation. Here again, like I said before, it seems to want to have a fight with Kratos. It screams while slamming its bladed arms together, like it's telling Kratos to make the move. I love this animation a lot. This attack animation is great. The Wraith spins like helicopter blades, with great speed before slowing down slightly before performing the final swing on its deadly attack. Same with this animation being great. It swings one arm up with great power and doing the same with its other arm before slamming both of them down together with great force, thus showing how deadly it is. This animation here is when the Wraith burrows into the ground. When I look at this animation, I can't help but think of a drill, with how it spins and goes down into the floor. I love this death animation here. I believe this happens when you kill it with the Blade of Artemis. I've never killed one with the sword, so this is my first time seeing this animation. I like how its body splits off into different areas, like its blades falling behind him, one laying on the floor and the other, from what it looks like, sticking into the ground. Finally, its torso landing next to its lower half. I enjoy this animation here more, as it's more brutal. This is where Kratos picks the Wraith up, slamming it onto the ground before ripping its bladed arm off and using it to decapitate it. All of it is just so brutal and satisfying. In game it looks much better. This is it in game now. Looks much more brutal, doesn't it? This attack animation is when the Wraith emerges from the ground, up into the air before slamming its blades into the ground, dealing a devastating blow. This is it in game. As you can see, it caught me off guard a few times. These next few animations here are what play when the Wraith is under the ground coming towards Kratos. This is what they all look like. As you can see, they're all completely different. I thought they were all quite interesting, especially the fact that you can see the body of the Wraith. Some of the animations I found comical. You never get to see these animations like this in game. In game, it's just a black mist coming from the ground, where you can barely see the arms popping through. This is what they look like in game when under the ground. It's intriguing seeing them here and seeing what you couldn't before. I always thought that the body perhaps wasn't there and it was just the arms. Turns out I was wrong. Well, that's all of the enemy types. I hope you did enjoy watching and seeing all of them and some of their animations. Maybe you learned something new and interesting. Tell me in the comments which one was your favourite enemy type, and perhaps even a favourite animation too. Maybe there's something you want me to cover in another video. Maybe a topic or perhaps an idea of your own. I'll see you all in the next video.